Hey people, hope you're doing well. So I got the R5 2.5 years ago, and I was one of the first people that got it because I pre-ordered it right away when it was announced. I've been using this camera in professional environment as a photographer and cinematographer. I worked in different environments from high productions to middle productions. So my clients are like Adidas, Red Bull, Reebok, different beer companies. So I've done different kind of stuff, and I really did stress test this camera. So in this video I'm gonna discuss if this camera is still worth buying in 2023. So let's start. Now I'm gonna start talking about photo side first. The R5 is an incredible workhorse. Anybody that got it will probably not change it if they got it for photography really soon, because it does pretty well what it's meant for doing. 45 megapixel sensor is not for everybody, but for my case it was perfect because I need to adjust my images for different layouts. And for that, 45 megapixels is something that is really welcomed. And if you do like heavy retouching, then also the 45 megapixels is also welcome. The image quality is great. I think this is the best sensor from Canon regarding that. Maybe the R3 is up slightly better because it's newer and it's BSI and stack. The good thing is that it allows you to go in high ISO without fear. I would say it's even slightly better than the R5 and R6 regarding high ISO performance. If you downsize this photo to 24 megapixels, it's gonna have a better ISO performance than the R6 Mark II that I'm currently filming on. And if you're interested in that camera, there is a review here. There are some other cool features like great autofocus, 20 frames electronically, which is usable. I used it often for action, for sport. Not every sport, but it's more usable than I was expecting it to be. 12 frames is also nice to have. It also has incredible compressed RAW, so that's half of the size of uncompressed RAW, the traditional RAW that Canon uses. It allows you basically to save hard drive space without losing a lot of information in your files. And I'm using that for 80 to 90% of my work. Actually, I switch to uncompressed RAW only when I'm doing something really important. But when it comes to video, things get different. When this camera was released, it had some really bad marketing behind it. I think first of all, you have to be aware this is first photo camera, then video camera. When it was released, it had some overheating problems that are gone now. With the latest firmware, basically this camera doesn't overheat in 4K high quality mode. It does overheat in 120 4K mode. It's much better now. But when it was released, that was something that really influenced the whole image of this camera. Luckily for my workflow, that never was a problem, the overheating. I did use it straight away when I bought it for video, and I never pushed it enough to overheat because my workflow is more intermittent filming. So I take a shot, I stop, I take a shot, I stop. But for people that are filming long-term content, maybe that's not ideal. You have to be aware also that this camera still has the 30-minute record limit. I was still hoping that they will remove it at one point, but unfortunately they didn't. And also it doesn't have the C-Lock 2. So if you like to push your files, grade them a lot, then maybe this is not a good choice for you. It has C-Lock 3, which is for my use case okay. I would like to have the C-Lock 2, but the C-Lock 3 is really easy to grade actually color-wise. If you would like to push the files, then you're gonna get some clipping happening in the highlights or in the shadows depending how did you expose. With the C-Lock 2 you get 2 stops more of dynamic range, I would say. There is one thing that is great about this camera, that's external recording, and people are not talking about that a lot because it has micro HDMI, which is limiting by its size and it's a little bit flimsy, I would say. But still it allows you to record externally on the Ninja 5 Plus up to 8K, which is actually incredible, in RAW, which is really important to know. And also it allows you to record 5K RAW externally up to 60 frames per second, but in a crop mode, in a Super 35. That's, I think, 12-bit, which is really important, especially if you're using this camera in control environment. Then this is not big of a problem, having a micro HDMI. The problem is if you're doing running, a lot of situations where you can break easily maybe that HDMI input. But for control environments, usually that doesn't happen and you are probably fine. Now, This camera is far from perfect for sure, especially regarding video. So there are some things that I would like to see made different, and that could maybe influence your choice of buying this camera. First of all, this camera has a record limit up to 30 minutes, and also it still overheats if you're filming in 4K in slow motion. In 60 you need like 1 hour, or maybe depending on the external temperature, and in 120 it's half an hour of intermittent recording. So it still has some problems regarding that. The other things that I would like to see in this camera are some of the software features that the R6 Mark II got, like for example focus breathing compensation, false color, pre-recording, a better autofocus. I'm aware that the R6 Mark II has a newer version of DigiX processor, so there are some hardware limitations to the R5 that are probably preventing it to get all these neat features that the R6 Mark II got. There are some things that I would like done differently on this camera, and maybe I would like to see those improvements on the Mark II version. None of those R6 Mark II got, like full HDMI. I would like to see internal RAW recording in crop mode. For example, currently you can only record in 8K RAW, but it would be really nice to have 5K RAW. It would be easier to handle those files. Then open gate recording, to use the whole sensor for your video recording. That will be much easier for us that need to create content for different social media outputs. So you film horizontally, then you have to crop vertically, and then with full frame recording you will use the whole sensor, and you will have more image to work with when you are cropping it. And also I would like to see 10-bit colors in standard profiles while you're filming. That's something that I would like to see, considering that in some cases if you're doing like a high dynamic workflow you don't color grade, and then in those cases it would be really nice to use all that beautiful Canon colors in 10-bit. And it would be really nice to get the new display system that the Sony a7R5 has. I think that would be really nice to have on a camera, so when I'm filming the screen is here, so I can film like this, because when it's on the side it's really hard to do it. Yeah, there are still definitely room for improvements, and if you can wait for those, there are rumors about the Canon R5 Mark II, because I think that camera will probably have a lot of these issues fixed. Now the big question is, should you buy it in 2023? Well, if you're a photographer, I would say yes, considering the price drops. Currently in Croatia there is a cashback of 500 euros, that's equal around $500. So you get a $500 discount for buying this camera. And also there's a lot of good prices on the used market, so definitely you will not make a mistake buying this. You have to be aware that 45 megapixels is still not for everybody, so maybe you will get better results buying the R6 Mark II. The files are pretty similar, and I think it's much easier to handle 24 megapixel files than 45. You have to be aware that this brings additional problems, new cards, more hard drive space, and some of those things. But if you're okay with that, you're gonna buy this camera and you're gonna be happy for a long time, for sure. For photography, no questions asked. For video, actually for hybrid shooting, I would say maybe. If you really need a camera and you want a Canon that has 45 megapixels but you also do video, then I would say yes, but depending on what type of video are you doing. As I said before, this is mostly for intermittent recording and for people that are not pushing their files a lot in post-production. If you're one of those, then for sure, yes, you're gonna be happy, and it's still a really capable camera, and it's gonna be capable for a long time. 4K is still gonna be here to stay for a long time, and it can record 8K RAW. So if you're a hybrid shooter, I would suggest R3, because I think that's the best current hybrid camera on the market, real hybrid camera, and the R5C, which has its own limitations. You have to also think hybrid shooting has two different disciplines. One is where a person takes photos and videos right away in the same project, and the other type of hybrid shooting is one day you take photos, the other day you take videos. So R5C is more for the one day one, the other day other. The R6 Mark II and the R3 are more for those people that are taking photos and videos at the same project at the same time. Regarding video shooters, I would say go for the C70, go for the cinema cameras. You don't need this form factor for video. I understand you don't have maybe money to buy something like that, but then you're probably not thinking even about this. If you have money for this, you can wait a bit and buy C70 and you will be much happier. Or I don't know, the counterparts like FX6 and I don't know what else is there. It depends what you want and need. Like R5C is also a great option, but it has its own limitation. You have to rig it. Maybe even R3 is a better choice than this one for video because it offers 6K RAW, which is really usable. It's manageable in traditional workflows, but you have to be aware that the only current in this price range camera that offers C-Log 2 is C70, and it's not full frame. I wish Canon would release the C70 variant full frame sensor with a price range of FX6. That would be perfect. I think those would sell a lot. Yeah, so these are my thoughts about it. So to conclude, I would say it's still a great camera, especially for photography, for video, depending what you do. It still holds pretty well considering what competition is offering in the price range. Should you buy it? That mainly depends on your workflow. As I said, photographers for sure, hybrid shooters, maybe videographers, I would say no. Canon did pretty well with this camera. That was their third attempt of mirrorless camera, hybrid camera. So I think they did pretty well actually, and I'm really looking forward what they will bring in the Mark II version. I think that's gonna be a really interesting camera. I hope they will bring the C-Log 2. I hope this was interesting to you and helpful. If it was, please leave comments down below. Maybe you have any questions, and also if you really like this, subscribe and yeah, like, and see you in the next one, and share it. Please share it. Bye.